Hello, everyone. A warm good evening to all of you. Welcome to this webinar on using machine learning and deep learning with ArcGIS image analysis. So to begin with, myself, Kanan Jayaraman, Senior Remote Sensing and GIS Data Specialist. And with me, my colleague, Mr. Kiran Kumar, Business Development Director. Hi, Kiran.
Yeah, good evening, everybody, and hello, and welcome to this webinar today.
Yeah. So thank you. So let's begin the webinar with see what others can't. So I hope you're able to hear me. You're able to see my slides. So to find out what others can't see. So learn how to see what others can't by combining the information, by finding the patterns, by making new connections. We are going to use the science of where to see the data, what are the challenges, and how we look the data very differently. So we all might have experienced moments where everything suddenly comes into a focus and makes sense of life. Whether it is life, it's a business, or let's say our planet is with the complex organisms that are so chaotic and random and overwhelming. But when we realize that everything happens somewhere, we can see things in a very new way and understand how everything is connected in a different perception, in a new dimension. When we use the power of, say, for example, a location to see things differently, we can find clarity in chaos. So seeing things for what they are transforms the complexity into the inspiration, that needs to solve the toughest challenges. So to see what others can't, let me just give you a walk through a video that will kickstart the presentation. Actually,
we know we're interconnected. Part of a broader, ever more complex whole. It can inspire. It can overwhelm. It depends on how you see it. In confusion, you find connections. In complexity, understanding. You spot the pattern. See the big picture. What you do keeps it working. Moving. On time. You make it faster, smarter, better. You can answer. Is it safe? Are we ready? How do we help? You find the cause. See the options. Decide the solutions. You help us all work together to take better care, be healthier, happier, and do the right thing. You make a difference because you can see differently. You have the power to see what others can't.
so that's exactly what we are going to see in terms of how the technology has advanced, what we are going to see in machine learning, and how deep learning is going to help us to do kind of advanced image analysis, and what ArcGIS platform, basically what we are going to see today as the demo, ArcGIS Pro, is bringing to you on the tools and functionalities on how to access and how to analyze the images. So before getting into that, into digging deep into the system itself with all those advanced technologies, let me go across to Kiran. Kiran?
Yes.
Yes.
Hello, everybody.
So Kiran, could you please, having a kind of a domain experience over 15, 20 years, and you have been through like taken different experiences in the image analysis right from the past, what kind of images that have been used, how the technology has grown. If you can share a minute how you on your experience, how the images have grown over a period of
Yeah.
time and what we are looking into it, it will be very helpful for the audience.
Yeah, definitely. Now, when it comes to imageries, definitely images have evolved a lot. Okay. If you talk about the olden times, we were usually or completely stuck with either using a satellite imagery, very high resolution satellite imagery, or sometimes we used to get an aerial photograph. Whenever we get an aerial photograph, again, those used to be a little bit a costlier affair, right? So things have changed a lot. But before we get into all these aspects, okay, there is another very, very important thing which we need to understand, that today's presentation is basically more on getting information from an image. Now, when I say image, this is basically we are categorizing them as a satellite imagery. Imagery is either from a drone or an aerial photograph or something of that sort. Okay. There are other analyses which are also possible, like when we talk about AI, it covers a massive field, right? It is a big field. So let me also tell you that we are going to have another session next week wherein we are going to talk about machine learning tools with the big analysis, machine learning applied with the spatial data, empowering location intelligence. Okay, so it is more like traffic analysis, taking in huge amount of data, putting that with something else, and then coming up with some results. So that is also there, but this is not what we are going to cover today. So what we are going to cover today is basically extracting information from an image.
Right.
Okay,
So
so
when you
that
say,
is what basically we will be concentrating on. Now,
right.
as Kannan said, imageries have evolved a lot. Initially, when we were talking about satellite imageries, satellite imageries used to be 50 centimeters, 1 meter kind of stuff. But now satellite images have grown a lot. Now, the best satellite imagery, what you get today is 30 centimeters. Okay, so if you're working on a larger area, it is very good. Aerial photographs nowadays have reduced a lot. Okay, the only reason for that is drone has taken over. Okay, nowadays we see a lot of data coming from drones.
Right.
It is much simpler, easier. Okay, you just have to get some license, for flying a drone, a couple of permissions, and you're good to go. You can do a smaller project, you can do a bigger project. Okay, you can put in bigger drones. But there are so many different types of drones which have come up in the industries. Okay, doing different analysis. So these are some of the areas, or these are some of the imageries which are going to be used. Many a days people do ask, like, what would be the best image if I want to use an AI tool. Okay, and the simple answer for that would be, it all depends on what you are extracting from the image. Whatever you want to from the image, that is where we need to decide what kind of imagery has to be chosen. Let's say, for example, a simple by default rule over here, what we follow is, if you are able to identify a feature on an image by your naked eye, that could be done with a machine learning tool. That could be done automated. That can be automated, and then we can use that in this machine learning tool. Okay, and this is where we are going to concentrate today. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah, Kanan, can you?
Thanks, Kiran. Thank you. I remember, I remember the days when we work like having manual work, like drawing those pictures in a sheet, and then now the technology has developed a lot. And you are right, we have done a lot of automation, and machine learning and deep learning come a long way, and that's what we are going to see today. How ArcGIS has those tools and functionalities to extract information using machine learning and deep learning. Further proceeding into a kind of advanced subject, let's have a quick review on what we are going to discuss. I hope you are able to see my screen here. I'm just going to share it again in case if you have any difficulty in seeing this. So we are looking as ArcGIS as a comprehensive image platform, wherein we have a modern image framework which provides us kind of a seamless setting for all imagery driven application, whether it is a satellite image, or whether it is aerial photographs, or whether it is kind of a drone imagery. So this is a comprehensive image platform. ArcGIS Pro is a comprehensive image platform wherein you do a mapping and visualization, you perform analytics, you share and collaborate, you do field mobility, make a best decision out of the results, what you are doing based on analysis. So it's a scalable platform, we can say, which works with all kind of imageries to create a valuable information. So when you're talking about this kind of imageries, we are talking also on the kind of key capabilities. There are 5 key imagery capabilities of ArcGIS, which starts with you can put it in the way of what you see on the slide, which is visualization, which is management, map production, content, and analysis. So when we talk about these things, when you say management, which is about how you make the image accessible to the technical team and to the others and to the public. So how you manage it, what are the kinds of formats, how you store the images, what are the kinds of services you serve it to the end users, what kind of processing you allow them. So this is the kind of management that we are talking about. When we say map production, what kind of map production we have it? Let's say we are creating an ortho imageries, we are doing a feature extraction from the stereo imageries, or we are going to generate some tile caches for sharing those images, or let's say we have analysis, what kind of information that we can extract from the imagery. So there are inbuilt tools that are available in ArcGIS. There are some raster analytics for an extended analysis in the server level, robust analysis, we can say, and that what we are going to see today as a machine learning and deep learning and artificial intelligence combined together, we can do some kind of analysis. Finally, when it comes to visualization and content, yes, we can integrate into a dynamic applications, whether it is a desktop or a stereo or a web or into mobile. And when you're talking about the content, we are going to use the authoritative contents from the sensors. Many of the partners are offering these things. So it is very important, as my colleague Karan pointed out, it's very important to extract information and what you're actually looking to the information. So we need to talk to the image. Once you talk to the image, it gives you all the results what you want, what kind of what kind of configuration you do with your tools, what kind of analysis you do with your tools, what kind of parameters do you put into your tools. So depending on those such workflow, depending on such kind of an algorithm that you put, and then you run through the analysis, you get the results. So that's what we say, 5 key imagery capabilities of ArcGIS: visualization, management, analysis, content, and map production. On the other hand, how do we look the images? If you want to put it in the other side, we are broadly categorizing into 3 systems. Basically, a system of insight, wherein we get all these manage and serving the imageries, transforming into new products like processing and compiling. We talk about system of insight, where we extract some information using the predefined tools or the tools that are available in the COTS product. With the professional imageries using the GIS analysts and GIS technicians. And when you talk about system of engagement, we share the imagery products basically, and then we make it accessible and suitable for the other applications. So this is a comprehensive image platform which talks about the 3 systems. Basically, the system of insight, wherein the professional and imagery geospatial analysts use those data to process it. Then the system of engagements, wherein the other people consume it from different domains and different organizations. And there are certain places where you keep those records and then use it for different purposes. So we can have this content from ArcGIS Online and from the different partners also. Okay, now what are the kinds of imagery supported in ArcGIS? Basically, it comes with different formats, you know that. So we have different kinds of sensors, starting with very, very high resolution sensors, like Karen said, it is 30 centimeter, to we have imagery still Landsat. So each and every sensors, each and every data product comes along with the different formats and from different origins. So ArcGIS has the capability to support them all, basically. So whenever we get kind of an images, we always try to see some kind of an area of interest, wherein how many images fix into it. It doesn't generally come into one single image, but we call it as a collection of imagery. So we need different collection of imageries, whether it is the imagery coming from satellite, whether the images coming from the aerial photographs, or the images coming from the drone, or any other terrestrial imageries that you have it. So how we are going to work on these kind of imageries? So basically the one idea is to work on the kind of mosaic data sets for satellite, aerial, and drone imageries, and there is something called an oriented imageries, which we will not discuss further, but we may have one more session maybe in the later stages when we can come up with to show you all these kind of oriented imageries, how we process this oriented imageries. So currently the most important concept is to combine the set of imageries, whether you have for a smaller area or for a bigger area. If you have more than one imageries, you need to combine it. So the concept is to combine the set of file-based or the cloud-based imageries. So here the mosaic data set has a major role, which it includes combination of different data sets. There are some customizable functions in the mosaic data set that you can use it on the fly. You can do the processing and see the results, and if you want to change the parameters, you can do it on the fly. And it supports full ortho processing. There is some lot of automation and scripting has come up. We have caching and other optimizations can be done for a better rendering. So this is how we work with the mosaic data sets. So oriented imagery, I'm just moving out. We'll see it in the later stages. Now, when you want to talk about the image data management sources, the image management and disseminations definitely is a key for successful implementation of the workflows. So when you're defining workflows, it is very important how you are going to optimize your workflows, what kind of results that you are getting it, whether these results are, whether the intermediate results are required as to be stored, or the intermediate results can be just passed to the step 2 of the next result or the next step. So these things are to be looked into it as a workflow, and we need to make a successful implementation of these workflows. Now, when we talk about the important concepts, as I talked in the previous one, we have the mosaic data sets, wherein we do combine all those imageries and create a mosaic data sets and publish the images for the view. We have fine ArcGIS imagery workflows. There are some standard workflows, there are some ortho workflows, and we also have some workflows related to elevation. And we have something on MDCS. This is mosaic data sets services. We have we can create data sets, we can update services. All these things can be worked on in the image data management sources. So it's a kind of management, how you want to take up your imagery task, how you want to consume it, how you want to analyze it, how you want to publish it, how you want to share it, what kind of information that you can extract from it, how much ROI we are getting it, what kind of decisions can be made. So whenever you are doing some kind of an analysis, the most important thing is the decision that we make. So is the analysis giving you a proper results that helps us to make the better decisions? Again, when you talk about analysis can be a shorter analysis, which, let's say, for example, you're doing one, let's say you're doing 10 imageries in a desktop, or analysis can be a bigger analysis wherein you need to use some kind of a raster analytics, you see. So ArcGIS has a kind of a raster analytics wherein you can develop and build big solutions like this. Let me just go to the system where I can show you here. Yeah, so you can configure your enterprise system for a raster analysis, which can be helpful to run through a large set of imageries and then give you a better results. It's actually robust actually. So that's the way you can look into the imagery. So we have imagery and raster overview in the ArcGIS Pro, which we are going to see. You definitely require an image analyst extension. We have spatial analyst extension for raster analysis. You can do basically a standard image classification, wherein most of you might be aware about the supervised, unsupervised classification. Here we are going one step ahead on the advanced classification of object-based image analysis, wherein we are going to use the machine learning and deep learning, and we are going to see how it behaves. Now, coming to our subject of machine learning tools. So when we talk about a machine learning, what we actually do is, so machine learning actually refers to a set of data-driven algorithms, you see, and the techniques that automate a kind of a prediction. So it is mostly a prediction based and clustering of the data sets. So machine learning can be computationally intensive because it doesn't involve any human interventions. It can be computationally intensive, and it always involves a large and complex data set. That's what I said. When you want to do some kind of a robust analysis, we talk about machine learning tools. So we can do some kind of a classification. Then the machine learning tools further come down to a kind of a deep learning actually. So the machine learning tools can play a critical role in a spatial problem solving in a wide range of applications. Of course, you might have seen the video how we are going to look into different problems in a different perspective, solving in a wide range of application areas, from multivariate prediction to image classification to spatial pattern detection. So image machine learning is used in classification, is used in prediction, and also it is used in clustering. So there are a lot of tools that are available in ArcGIS Pro. So Esri has added a lot of deep learning support in ArcGIS Pro, which is a perfect tool to use the existing data and generate. So generally what we do is we generate training samples. Basically, when we want to make the machine learn, we take samples as an object, and then we make the machine to learn it. And once the machine is learned, we take that model and then put it to use it for the other images. This is what we are going to see as a demo also. So there are certain tools that are available that you can go through it. So we have the labeling objects for deep learning. We have export training data for deep learning. So these are some of the tools that are available, some of the algorithms that are available. The most important thing is we have a open Python based integration to interface with the deep learning models based on frameworks like TensorFlow, framework like CNTK. I'll just come to that slide. So this is what we are going to learn on this. So when we come back to the slides, let me just see that. So we talked about the ArcGIS as a comprehensive image platform. Now we are going to get into this artificial intelligence. So artificial intelligence, a bigger one, within which we have something, within which we develop this kind of a machine learning, and within which the most important thing, where Kiran pointed out, the most important thing is the automation. Automation is the primary thing. How we are going to efficiently automate, how we are going to optimize our work, what kind of information that we can extract from the imagery, whether it is a satellite imagery, whether it is a aerial photographs, whether it is a drone imagery. So extracting information in a more efficient way, in a more optimized way, and with an automation, with the time factor also taken into consideration, how we are going to work on this machine learning and deep learning. So that's what we are going to see to it. Okay, so when we come to this artificial intelligence, so we have something called artificial intelligence. You all know about the speech recognition, the video game behavioral, the computer visions, everything. So basically, when we say the artificial intelligence, the field of artificial intelligence has progressed rapidly in recent years. It has taken a leap. It has taken a big leap. Either it is matching, or in some cases, even it is surpassing the human accuracy at a task such as image recognition, or reading comprehension, or translating this kind of a text. Now, when this intersection of artificial intelligence and GIS is creating a massive opportunities that weren't definitely possible before, right? So artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning are helping us make the world better by helping, say, for example, let's say that to increase crop yield through kind of a precision agriculture. That's one of the nice, interesting domain that you can look into it. Fight crime by developing predictive policing models, and say for predicting when the next big storm, see, for example, natural calamities will hit. So we are just doing kind of a nice modeling, and then we tend to get kind of a prediction based on our inputs on the kind of data, and we are better equipped to handle this. So when you talk about artificial intelligence, it is an ability of the computers to perform a task which requires some level of human intelligence. Yes. Now within the artificial intelligence, we have this kind of a machine learning, where it's a kind of an engine that uses a data-driven algorithm. Basically, it works with the data-driven algorithms to learn. So we make the machine to learn with some kind of an algorithm. As you see, there are some logistic regressions, neural networks. Next is the neural network that comes up. So when we allow the machine to learn based on these algorithms, now the advanced technologies that we are going to see today is a deep learning, wherein it's a kind of a machine learning. It refers to a deep neural network. So how we human perceive our things, we are trying to inculcate our knowledge and then build those kind of an algorithms, so that whatever the data that we use, particularly pertaining to the imagery, we get the kind of information that what we are expecting it. So that's about the deep learning. So it's a way that you see artificial intelligence, and then getting into the machine learning, and then we get into the deep learning. So it refers to a deep neural networks that are inspired from and loosely resemble the human brain. So if you understand how the neural networks work in the human brain, how we perceive the things, how we look into the different domains in a different perspectives, so that's how we are trying to build the kind of an algorithm and get the machine learn and identify those objects in the imageries and extract information within the less time and with more automated things. So these are some of the machine learning techniques which includes in the artificial intelligence, machine learning and deep learning techniques. So I'm not going deep into it because I'm just going to show you some more interesting factors. Now, coming into the deep learning pertaining to ArcGIS itself. Kiran, would you like to add something on this deep learning, on this data science, please?
Yeah. So basically, whatever Kannan is clear, that's what exactly it means. So whenever we are talking about, the deep learning. So these are some of the open source algorithms which are available. Esri uses these open source algorithms. It takes all these algorithms, so the data can be easily passed on from one system to another system. So uh, again, a very simple method of extracting features. Uh, what are the kind of features? As I initially said, anything which can be identified with a naked eye can be done using this deep learning.
So we see that machine learning has always been a core component of spatial analysis in the in GIS. So as Kiran pointed out, we have multiple frameworks and platforms wherein we use this technology, which is CNTK, TensorFlow. I'm just going to give you a brief on this. But before we just get into this, as we have been seeing some kind of a see what others can't, and we are learned on what our GIS can do, what are the tools and functionalities, and how machine learning and deep learning has taken a leap. Let's jump into a kind of a demo that I can quickly show you, and then we go further. So if you have any questions, please put on the Q&A, and we'll be glad to answer those questions during the near closure of the sessions. And that will be, I hope that will be helpful for you actually. How we are going to work on this? Let's say that I have a kind of an imagery that I have it as a drone imageries. So to begin with, I'm having an ArcGIS Pro project. I'm having an ArcGIS Pro 2.5 version, which I'm working on. The latest version is 2.5.1, wherein I'm using a kind of a Conda environment. I have cloned this ArcGIS Pro to use the Conda environment so that I don't work on the base environment of the ArcGIS Pro. So I'm using a Conda environment to build some kind of an algorithms and to use the deep learning tools and functionalities in ArcGIS Pro. So as I told you, see this, I'm using a cloned environment which I take it as a deep learning. So we cannot modify the default Python environment. So I have just cloned it to use the Conda environment as a new environment, wherein I'm using an image, which is a drone imagery as a sample data that I have taken it. So the initial steps, what I do is, basically I need to collect some samples. So this is the ArcGIS Pro environment. I always encourage the participants whomsoever comes for the training, please start using the ArcGIS Pro. There is a lot of tools and functionalities which has come up in ArcGIS Pro, and it has been robust and extensive when using with all kinds of data sets. So here I'm going to use the ArcGIS Pro 2.5.1, the latest version, and then I'm using the imagery, a sample imagery. So what here I will do is, initially I need to give some kind of a sample. So I have picked up some areas. If you see my bookmarks, I have picked up some areas wherein I want to collect some samples. So what I'm going to do here, basically here in this exercise, I'm just going to use a deep learn to assess the palm tree health. So this image shows me an area where the palm trees are there. So we are going to see the health of the palm tree. So to detect the palm trees and calculate the vegetation health, we are just going to use the ArcGIS Pro with ArcGIS Image Analyst extension. I'm just going to give you, you need a tell you the hint that you need an ArcGIS Image Analyst extension, right? So you need an ArcGIS Image Analyst extension. Now, inventorying and assessing this, the health of each palm in this particular region of this much bigger area is definitely a big task actually. So what we actually do to simplify the process, we are going to use a deep learning model in ArcGIS Pro. That's what we are seeing here. We are not going to go and count on the ground how many palm trees are affected, which are healthy, which are not healthy, but we are going to use a deep learning model in ArcGIS Pro to identify the trees, then calculate their health based on some kind of a measure of vegetation greenness. You see, some kind of a measure of vegetation, greenness. How we are going to do this? That's what we are going to see in this example or in this demo. So let's see how we are going to work on this. So to begin with, the first and the foremost step, what we do is we go into the imagery and then we do some kind of a classification. So basically, we label the objects for deep learning. When you say label the objects, we create some kind of an object. So first, I go to the map and then I say bookmark northwest. So what I do is I try to create a schema here. Let me just say add a new class. I'm just going to say palm. So I'm just going to give a value here 1, or let's say just 1. I'm just going to give a color here. I say okay here. So now I'm going to pick the palm. Let's say that I'm just going to pick all those crowns, and then saying that wherever these kind of crowns, this is, I'm picking as an object, not as a pixel. I'm picking as an object. So I'm just picking those crowns. So so similarly, what I do, I pick all the areas. Let's say that I have selected different areas, because the area what you see here is a bigger one for one set of imagery. Let me just go back here. Yeah. So the area what you see here is full of palm trees, actually, this area. And you see it's picking up each and every palm is not going to help us, but it's going to consume time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to search some of the palm trees in different regions like this, and then I'm going to collect some training sets. How do I collect some training sets? Just to speed up the time, I already have some samples that I already collected it. You see, for example, I have collected some samples in this region. Now, if I go to other region, let's say that we are going to some other region, northwest, I have collected some samples here. Now, if I go to some other region, southwest palms, I have collected some samples. So overall, in this imagery, I have collected a lot of samples across the imageries so that I can do a better training of the data set. So once I have this training,
So
what I do is,
so also the collection of the palm trees in different areas, that means like it also takes care of the structure of the tree. It takes
right,
care of the canopy of the tree.
right,
Different areas might have different trees along with that, so we have to be very careful that those trees are not been identified. Okay, so all these things are combining together. So that's the reason it is always better to have palm trees chosen from 3 or 4 different areas.
correct.
And if
So
you actually enlarge the image and very see clearly, you will see that palm trees are seen. You can identify them by a naked eye. So it's very, very easy.
right.
So you can ask a question, can I automate a process for other trees? It is possible and sometimes not possible. There are two sets of this. You may not get definitely 100% of result in that, but you can work out a few things if you have a drone imagery.
Okay. Thank you, Kiran, for that input. So the first thing is, once we collected the training samples, now that I have collected across the areas different training samples, we have to create a training schema. So we have collected the training samples. Now we need to build this, actually. So what we have to do? So we have to build or we have to train using the deep learning model. So now I have this deep learning model tool that is available in the geoprocessing toolbox in the ArcGIS Pro. So I keep give an environment. I have an environment wherein I give input training data. Now, if I have to show you, now if you see this, when I say the input training data, I'll just go to my samples. I have this here. You say I'm collecting some image chips. Basically, whatever I collect something like an image chips. So there are images that are available as a JPEG file. I save it as a JPEG file when I do the label, the sample collections, and I give that as an input, actually. So what I do is I go to the webinar here. Just a minute. I go to the webinar. I just control this, and then I just say image chips, and then I just okay to it. So what it does, it tries to train the system based on the deep learning model. It tries to create output model based on the samples that we give. So we just kind of give an epoch, which is an iteration kind of a thing, which runs through all this image, whatever we have selected. So basically, I have collected more than 100 samples. Really, I have collected more than 100 samples, and then each sample will be taken into consideration. It will run through some kind of an iteration, and finally it will give me some kind of a model wherein it has learned it. Basically, it will try to say, Kanan, I have learned it based on the inputs that you are given. So that's how the model completes. So this takes a lot of time. It took me over an hour for the system that I have it. So I already have the model ready. So what I'm going to do is, once the model is ready, I'm just going to detect these objects using deep learning. You see, so I have to just give it like I have the TIFF file. I'm just going to give the output detected objects here, and then I'm just going to say the model definition. So I have a model definition already available for me. So I'm just going to give, the model has been trained. Once I give this model, you get to give the certain parameters that will come based on those parameters and based on the model that is generated on the schema that we created. You know, remember on the training samples that we generated, it runs through this. It runs through this. So it detects the object. So basically what I have done, I have collected some samples here, I have collected some samples here, I have collected some samples here. So these samples are put into this model, and then finally it creates a final output. And then it shows me that these are the coconut trees. For example, it is going to take something. Yeah, it came up. See, these are some of the arguments I'm going to give, wherein I just change the arguments. Let's say I have a padding value of 2, I have a threshold of 0.5. Once I have this value set and I run it, it might take me like half an hour to run the model to detect the objects based on the samples that I give. So you get something output. I'll just show you an output. Let me just bring the output here and then change the color. I'm going to give you the another color wherein you can just see how it has taken up the result. You see, now these results show us how the images have been trained well, how the samples have been collected in a much better way. There could be definitely some kind of a misclassification. It all depends on how we are going to define those model parameters and how we are going to give the threshold, what kind of padding levels that you give. Now, this what I can do is I can convert this data into a point data set so that it is easy for us to identify very quickly these palm trees. You see, so these palm trees can be identified quickly. So these are some of the palm trees that it has been selected very precisely. So you can see that. Now, our interesting part, how do we do this? So what we do it, basically the task for us is to assess the palm tree health. So what I can do is I can take this input as I can take this output as my next input, and then I can just going to run a kind of a you know, you have read about for example like NDVI or SAVI, spatial analysis module. You see, so we have a soil adjusted vegetation index. So similarly here I'm going to use an algorithm to estimate the vegetation health. So to estimate the vegetation health, I'm going to use an algorithm which is called visible atmospherically resistant index, which is called VARY. So we can have a VARY. So I can just say functions. I can just bring it called a VARY. You see, you can have where is this? I think I'm missing this. Okay, let me just run through this quickly. So I use an algorithm called vegetation atmospherically resistant index. Vegetation atmospherically resistant index. So I go to the raster functions. I go to the raster function. I select the band arithmetic. Let me say I select the band arithmetic. So we have something called a band arithmetic. If you go to the band arithmetic, there are different methods that you have it. You see here, NDVI, SAVI. Here we have something called a vary. So wherein I put the index of the images that I'm going to use. I'm going to use the images that I have it. That's the Colavi, the sample imagery that we have it. And I use a vary algorithm. I did a vary algorithm, which is visible atmospheric resistant index, and then try to measure the leaf area index basically and the vegetative fractions. So once I do this algorithm, once I calculate the vary, I can finally go to a kind of a classification. So after I detect the vary, I can go to a kind of a classification based on the this is a vary result that you get, as you see here, and these are the palm trees that we detected. And once we have this together, what you can do is I can combine these two fields, and then final results I can get which trees are needs inspection, which trees needs inspection, which trees needs declining health, which are moderate, which are healthy. So this gives a whole perspective. When I put on the vary and then I just go in deep, I can see in different colors. I can do some kind of a classification wherein it says it needs inspection, there is a declining health. With the different colors of classification, we can definitely do a better job. So that's how we do a machine learning, that's how we do a deep learning, and that's how we extract the information on a particular set of data that we want to do some kind of an analysis. So I hope this was interesting session for you. Kiran, would you like to add something that we are
Yeah.
in close to the
So
session?
currently, currently there are a few questions which have been asked. So let's
Okay.
try to address them.
Okay.
Okay. So the first thing, basically, why do we need to choose as a JPEG? So it's not basically choosing us as a JPEG. What it does is, whenever I try to create some samples, it will run a window, a small window of let's say 49 pixels by 49 pixels. A small window is run through the entire image, and wherever the samples have been identified, those have been converted into smaller JPEGs. Those are taken into smaller JPEGs and stored in a specific place.
Yeah.
That has been used to, for this deep learning. The first question which has been asked, like, which algorithm to be chosen. Again, this is a different question altogether.
So here we have it actually.
Yeah.
I just want to show them if you are able to see my screen. So these are different algorithms that we have it. So we have TensorFlow, we have Keras, we have PyTorch, and we have CNTK. So depending, like Kiran said, depending on the usage, it basically we can use it. For example, TensorFlow, it's an open source platform for machine learning. For Keras, when you talk about it's a neural network library with written in the Python. So if you are working with the Python, so you can use use these Keras. If you are comfortable with the CNTK, which is a Microsoft Cognitive Toolkit, you can have a deep learning framework developed by the Microsoft Research. So you can work on the algorithm that you are comfortable with. Actually.
Yeah. So in this case, there is a lot of sensor flow which is being used.
Yeah.
The sensor flow is more for the object detection and the deep lab. So that's what has been used in the algorithm. And then there is a lot of PyTorch also. Again, it depends, as the presentation shows. Based on what work you have, you can just choose one of the models.
Yeah. So the next question is, will the outputs of the deep learning model be in a raster or a vector format? Kiran, you'd like to take up this?
Yeah, so the results of deep learnings are usually vectors. I can convert that into raster also, but I mean, at the end of the day, what I'm trying to achieve here is the number, the count of the trees. So that is always going to be a vector layer. So it is going to create a polygon around the trees, whatever have been selected. So basically, it's going to be more of a vector format.
Right. So now there is another question which is being asked. I can some trees are duplicated. Yes, definitely you will see some kind of a trial and error. You need to refine those deep learning algorithm. Here it is shown as a sample. We are trying to show how Esri has those kind of advanced technologies of deep learning, wherein we have a deep learning algorithms that has been developed. So these results has to be refined to get to get an accuracy in the kind of analysis output that you get. So when you see
also another very big example of this is, let's say for example, if you have two trees which are close to each other, and when the tree canopy is taken into consideration and then converted into a point, many a times the 2 points have been they show as one tree, but there are actually two trees in that particular location. And as Kanan said, yes, there might be some trees which are left out, there might be some trees which may be collected twice. Yeah, so there would be some kind of errors, definitely. Whenever we talk about deep learning, we always usually say that it can vary from almost like 80% to 90% of accuracy,
yes,
again depending on the imagery.
it's basically the refinement that we do in the algorithm. Do you
How
have
are
a
the results
restriction?
evaluated? Results are basically evaluated. Let's say, for example, if you have some ground control points which have been collected for a specific region to take that region, and whatever results have been generated from these systems, we use that as a reference and this as the output, and then we try to evaluate that. And that
Okay.
is again done in different areas for us to get the answer.
Right. Do we have a restriction to work with only this algorithm, or can I make use of any other?
You can make use of any other algorithms whichever you have. Again, as we said, this is basically run on the Python, so there's a lot of Python scripting in the background. So if you have any other algorithms that can be brought in, and you can use them also.
We will take last two questions, Kiran. I wish to read out algorithms. How? Yeah, we can share these informations with you once after this session. You can get to know about this. We'll definitely give some kind of an inputs to you. We can definitely share some kind of where you can go and read this algorithm. So there are a lot of sources that are available. You can get through it. One last question: can we use ML for flood detections? Machine learning, right? We can use some kind of a machine learning algorithm wherein we need to again look into this prediction. So machine learning is like a prediction, right? So when we have some kind of a prediction, we can definitely use this kind of a machine learning algorithms for flood detection also. What is the area that is being affected? How much area will be affected? So all these questions we can definitely get to you also on this kind of information that is possible. So to quickly close the session. So there are definitely, you see, there are something called a land use classification you can make. You have some kind of inference tools you have. These are some of the results that we have it.
If you have any other questions, we would love to answer them. There is an email address also given for Kanan.
You can put your email address in the chat in case.
Yeah, so please put in your questions. If you have anything for us to discuss, we would be open to discuss them. If there is any small kind of POC kind of a stuff which you guys want to do it, we can help you in that. Okay, so all these aspects we can take into consideration.
So thank you all for your presence on this for this presentation. I hope the session was interesting and informative. Thank you for attending the session. Thank you, Kiran, for all the inputs and the technical details that you shared, your experience and other things. So see you in the next webinar. Thank you all. Thank you once again.